Dear students, now I welcome you all to this module 2 in Business Ethics and CSR. So, we'll be starting off with the topic, what is Consumer Protection Act? So, this module basically covers two acts, that is Consumer Protection Act and Environment Protection Act. So, in this session today, we'll be covering about Consumer Protection Act. So, what all are going to be the topics that we'll be covering? Who's a consumer? What is the meaning of a consumer? How do we protect consumers? What is the history of Consumer Protection Act? The importance, objectives, scope, need of Consumer Protection Act, and how are Indian consumers exploited? What are the rights being given to consumers, and what is the legal protection under Consumer Protection Act? So what are the various rights being given to a consumer under this Consumer Protection Act? So we see that the rights are right to safety, right to information, right to choice, right to be heard, right to seek redressal, consumer education, right to basic needs, and right to a healthy environment. So we'll go by one in detail about each one of them. Right to safety is basically to be protected against those marketing of goods or the provisions of services that are hazardous to health and life. Similarly, under right to information, a consumer has the right to be protected against dishonest or misleading advertisements or labeling, and has been given the right to be given the facts and information that are required to make an informed choice. Similarly, right to choice, to choose products at competitive prices with an assurance of satisfactory quality. Similarly, there is the right of representation. What does this right say? It says that the consumer has a right to express interest in making an execution of government policies. Similarly, we see the right to seek redressal. So over here, the consumer gets right to be compensated for all the represented facts or the shady practices, that the business people do. So over here, he can settle his grievances. Similarly, a right to consumer education. What is right to consumer education? Over here, the consumer has a right to acquire knowledge and skills so that he can become an informed consumer. Then there is the right to basic needs. So over here, this right, it actually ensures survival, adequate fooding, clothing, sheltering, health education, sanitation facilities. All this will come to under the right of basic needs. Similarly, what is right to healthy environment? To live and work in an environment which is neither threatening nor damaging, which permits a life of dignity and well-being. So, what is the consumer's responsibility? With certain rights being given to you, there are going to be certain responsibilities that would lie on the shoulder of consumers. So, first of all, the responsibility is that he must exercise his rights. So, all these rights being given to a consumer, the consumer must make preferences. He must select the product according to his preferences. He must file a case. If he is dissatisfied with by using a particular product or a service, he must file a complaint if he is not satisfied with the quality. Right? Then the consumers need to be cautious. So consumers should not blindly believe in the words of the seller. He must insist on getting full information about the quality, quantity, utility, price of the product. So that he has a little information about what he's purchasing. Similarly, the customer must be quality conscious. So over here, the consumer himself must stop compromising with the quality of the product. So while purchasing the products or services, the consumer must go ahead and look for quality marks, like the ISI mark, the AgMark mark, the ISO mark, or the wool mark. So these are all quality marks which are being given on products. So while making purchasing decisions, the consumer should be quality conscious. Similarly, the consumer must insist on the cash memos. So if you need to file a complaint, the consumer needs evidence of the purchase, and the cash memo, it serves as the evidence. So, or you may call it the proof that the consumer has paid for the good or services that he is now regretting to buy. So you must insist on the cash memo. Then, for filing the complaints for redressal of genuine grievances. So the consumer must file a complaint even for a small loss. This awareness among the consumers will make the sellers conscious about what quality of product are they supplying ahead. So over here, the consumer should not ignore if it is a small loss that they are suffering. So even for smaller losses, if it is a genuine grievance, the consumer should go ahead and file complaints. Now we see how are the Indian consumers exploited. So Indian consumers, we know they've been exploited in a number of ways, like exorbitant charging of exorbitant prices, like deceptive selling prices. We see misleading advertisements. We see higher prices with defective quality. We see suppression of material information or false product differentiation. We see supply of adulterated or substandard products, dishonored guarantees and warranties, poor redressal of customers' genuine grievances, cheating consumers by giving lesser quality or quantity of the price, then sale of hazardous products to ignorant consumers, deceptive selling prices. These are all certain ways in which we see that the Indian consumers have been exploited. Now, what is the legal protection that is being given to consumers? So over here, we see that a number of laws have been passed by the government of India over the years so as to protect the interest of consumers. Like we know the multiple acts, Agricultural Product Act, which came in 1937, the Industries Act in 1951, Prevention of Food Adulteration Act in 1954, Essential Commodities Act in 1955, Standards of Weigh and Measure Act 1956, Monopolies and Restrictive Act in 1969, Bureau of Indian Standards Act 1986, Consumer Protection Act, which was again in 1986, and similarly there was an act on the Prevention of Black Marketing and Maintenance of Essential Supply Act, which was passed in 1980. So we see that in India, a number of acts have been created time and again so as to so as to give legal protection to the. So under legal protection, the consumers can first of all move to the district forum. So a district forum is formed by, a committee of members, which includes one president and then there are two other members. So the president can be retired or a working judge of a district court. These people who are appointed, they're appointed by the state government. And in 1986, when this law was passed, it has jurisdiction to entertain complaint where the value of the goods did not exceed 5 lakh rupees. But now the limit has been raised to 1 crore over these years. So the agency sends the goods for testing in the laboratory if it's required. And if the aggrieved party is still not satisfied with the judgment of the district court, then it can move up to state commission within 30 days by depositing 2500 or 50% of penalty, whichever is less. So if they're not satisfied even at the state level, then they can move up to the national forum. If not satisfied with the national forum also, then they can move up to the Supreme Court. So this is basically a three-tier committee which has been established in order to listen to the grievance of the consumers. So students, now we learn about how is legal protection being given to consumers. So there is a three-tier committee which is being established. Like we learned, there is district forum, then there is a state forum. Now a state forum, it consists of a president and there are two other members. So the person who's appointed as a president, first of all, he should be a retired or a working judge of a high court. Then these people who are appointed, like the president and the other two members which are appointed, they're appointed by the state government. So in 1986, it has a jurisdiction to entertain complaints where the value of the goods or services, it didn't exceed 5 lakhs. But now, over the years, this limit has been extended to around 10 crores. So, a state forum is going to entertain complaints of consumers wherein the product or the service that they bought did not exceed an amount of 10 crore. So, the state commission then it sends the goods for testing in lab if required, and if the party which is upset is not satisfied with the judgment, then they can move ahead to the third tier, that is the national commission, within 30 days by depositing 3500 or 50% of penalty amount, whichever is less, right? Next, moving on to the national forum. So this is the final forum where the complaint can be redressed. So this committee over here, the National Forum, it is formed by a president, and then there are four other members. Or one, one of these members needs to be a woman. So these members are they are again appointed by the central government. And in 1986, the National Forum had jurisdiction to entertain complaints where the value of the goods or the services did not exceed 20 lakhs. But now over the years, this limit goes beyond 10 crore also. So the National Forum sends the goods if required, and if the aggrieved party is still not satisfied with the judgment, then they can go ahead and file a complaint in Supreme Court within 30 days. Okay, so what we have learned in this particular session, we'll sum it up. So here are the key takeaways for this particular lecture. Like, what is the meaning of a consumer? So in today's session, we learned that a consumer is someone who buys goods or services for his own use rather than for reselling purposes, or in order to manufacture his goods further. So, like, consumer is one who directly would consume a particular product, right? Similarly, we learned about the rights of a consumer. So, there are various rights being given to a consumer under Consumer Protection Act, like the right to safety, right to information, right to choice, right to be heard, right to seek redressal, right to consumer education, right to basic needs, and right to healthy environment. In today's session, we also learned about the legal protection being given to a consumer. So we said in case you have a grievance, with related to your purchase or related to the service that you avail from an organization. So if the amount of the goods or services it is up till 1 crore, you can move up to the district forum. If it is more than 10 crore, you can move up to the national. You can move up to the state forum. If it exceeds an amount of 10 crore, then you can move up to the national forum. We also learned how the committees, how these forums are established, right? Only in national forum it is important that there should be a women member also. In other two forums like the state forum or the district forum, it is not required. So this is the key takeaway for today's session, right? Moving ahead, so these are the questions that I want you to answer. What are the rights granted under the Consumer Protection Act to a consumer? And where can the complaint be filed by a consumer? So these are the references that I use in order to prepare this lecture. Thank you, class.